it's just some easy questions.
Most people don't know the answers to those questions, so always happy to share.
I forget that our Twitter bubble is like how we see the world, but it's only a very small amount. Cool. Well, I think what we'll do is, why don't I let you just introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and where you are.
Definitely. I am Jake Salzer. I run Counterintuitive Records. I also manage a couple artists, and I'm based out of Boston, Massachusetts, in the United States of America.
Very professional. I love it. How and when did Counterintuitive Records start? Like, what was that time frame like in your life? Do you remember it well?
Oh yeah, I remember it quite well. I was in my senior year of college. I had given up on wanting to pursue what I was studying whatsoever. When I was done, I was just spinning the wheels to finish the degree and get the piece of paper. And I came across Bay Faction's demo on Reddit, and this is like January 2015. And I had some money saved up because I was supposed to go on this like cross-country road trip with my friend when I graduated, but then we had a falling out, and so it wasn't happening anymore, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do once I graduated. And so I was like, all right, whatever, like I'll see if this band's interested in working together. They sound cool. And then they were interested, and like 9 months later we put out their self-titled album on vinyl, and I launched the label in September 2015.
Hell yeah, I love that. How did you feel when approaching the band for the first time? Because obviously it changes when the more releases you do, the better you seem to get at communicating with people what you want to do. How did the first communication go? Were you kind of like, hey, I found your music on Reddit and I have some money, please let me put your record out?
Essentially it was like, all right, how do I convince these people to want to work with me when I have absolutely no experience, nothing to show them? And so I originally responded to their Reddit post with a Reddit DM, and then I realized, okay, they're probably not going to see that. So then I just sent it to them on Facebook, and it was basically like, hey, my name's Jake. I love the album you were making. I've been thinking about wanting to start working with artists. Do you have any interest in this being on vinyl? Because I've got the funds to do it, and I would love to be a part of the project. Like, that's all. That's it. I don't want to make any money. Like, you guys can keep all the money. I just want to like put out a record and be like, I'm really proud that I worked on this. And they were very receptive to it right off the bat, because originally I asked if they wanted the demo that they put out on a 7-inch, and they were like, well, the demo's for a record, so how about we just do a 12-inch? And then I was just like, that's even better. And like once I heard the record compared to the demos, I was like, oh my god, this is actually a real band, and they like want to work with me. So yeah, that just kind of got the gears turning, of like, okay, like if you tell somebody that you're willing to give them money to invest in their art and get nothing in return, they're interested. And so I was like, okay, I think I can make this work.
It's like a blue moon. Some artist that gets approached by someone from the internet who says, I've got some money, please let me put your record out.
Yeah. So I mean, if I was in their position, I feel like I would have been like, hell yeah, we get to write our own contract, and it says that that you don't get any profits. Like, I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely. Were they a local band? Were they close to where you were, or were they quite far away?
No, yeah, they luckily were very close. They all went to Berkeley, which is a college that was 45 minutes away from where I was going to college, and now is like less than 5 minutes from where I live.
Oh, super easy then.
Yeah, it was super easy. And so I just met them in the city like a few months after I reached out, and we like went over like the whole contract, and they showed me the album for the first time, and yeah, we just got things going.
Yeah, because you have, from what I'm aware, quite like a hands-off approach in terms of like what the bands want to do. I'm sure you have conversations with those people, and it must be quite a relief where you get given the whole package and you're like, this actually rocks. I have no edits on this, and I can't even give you any edits because I love it so much.
Yeah, I definitely like to stay as hands-off as possible. There are plenty of artists that'll send me the mixes or whatever and just be like, what do you think? Like, do you have any critiques or anything? And usually, even if I do, I don't really trust my ear enough to be like, I think you need to change something in this music. Like,
Yeah.
with the exception of like when I've been in the studio with Prince Daddy and I see every aspect of it getting made, then there might be parts where like I'll say something, but even that, I'm just like, Corey and Cameron and them are absolutely like 100 times more artistically inclined than me. So like, I don't really have the confidence to try to tell them that something could be better because I'm like, they know better than me. Like, look at what they've made. Like, I can just have faith that the products will come out in the end.
Yeah, they have a track record of writing slammers, and you are just the guy that does the rest of it. So
I just identify the slammers after the fact.
Yeah,
so I'll stick to that part of it.
Because you managed, as you said, a couple of bands. How did you fall into that? Was it sort of the old traditional, like, I can't stop thinking about this band. I think they're incredible. I genuinely feel like they should be bigger than they are, and I would like to help facilitate that. However, or did you just did it just make sense because you were putting the record out to keep everything in house?
It was more the first. You basically described exactly what it was. Where like I found Prince Daddy. They were on Broken World Media at the time, and I tried to like buy out. I thought you didn't even like leaving from Broken World Media, but they weren't interested basically. And so I was just like, all right, I missed the boat on this band. Like, they're already at a label that does stuff at the same size as me, so there's no way that I'll work with them in that regard. So I just asked them if I could go on tour with them when I met them and just do merch for them, and they were like, yeah, like, sure. And then it just evolved from like, oh, like, you're on tour with us, to me being like, oh, let me press your first EP on vinyl, because that never got a vinyl pressing. And then Broken World Media shit the bed, and it was like, oh, well, now let me press the album because we need to repress. I thought you didn't even like leaving. And then it was kind of like, okay, well, I repressed that. I know they're going to go onto a bigger label for the next record, but I like touring, so I want to keep touring with them. So I basically started saying like, I should be your manager. Like, none of you are really business people. You're musicians. Like, somebody to help you navigate that aspect of the music industry. And then, yeah, I just kept touring with them. And eventually they saw the value of having somebody like me on the team to run the business side of things.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it just evolved into becoming their manager. And then through that, that's how Oso Oso became aware that I was doing that. And so they approached me about managing them also. And then that just started the Jake Salzer Management LLC side of the world.
The other arm of that world. Because you came over to Europe with Prince Daddy, didn't you?
Yeah. So that was my
first. Where we met.
Yeah. Briefly at that Real Friend show.
That was just over a year ago, incidentally.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, a year ago, like a week ago or so.
Yeah.
That's crazy, yeah. That tour could be a podcast of its own, just based on how it went for us. But yeah, that was one of like the first things I did once I started managing Oso was we started gearing up for the Basking in the Glow record release. And it was around the same time Prince Daddy was gearing up for the Cosmic Thrill Seekers record release. And so they both had their US tours, and then we like a big thing was that we wanted to expand beyond just like playing US, Canada, Mexico. And, and so it was very clutch that they were great friends and wanted to do the tour together, and then they just happened to be the two artists I was managing.
Oh, it just works perfectly.
Yeah, and I wanted to go on a Europe tour again, so I was like, all right, this all adds up. Let's make it happen.
How did you, so you'd been on a European tour before with other people, or?
Yeah, I played bass for Kississippi on
yeah, of course.
A bit of, we ended up only getting to play like 4 or 5 shows, but it was with the Winter Passing and Tancred, and that was like 2018.
Yeah,
I'd done a brief UK run.
Yeah, how did you coming over then and coming over with Prince Daddy? How did you have any feelings of difference? Obviously, bar the like initial shock of like actually playing music in a different country and people are showing up, which is always nice. Did you feel like there were any differences in what you had done as a musician or as someone in the music industry, quote unquote, from America based to the UK?
It was definitely different. Like, especially for the Prince Daddy Oso one, nobody in either band could drive stick, to my knowledge. And so, right off the bat, I was like, we have to bite the bullet and hire drivers for both bands, and like that's like going to be the biggest expense of this whole thing. But like, it just has to be done because even if they could drive stick, I'm not sure there's a single member of either band that I trust to be driving in a foreign country. So yeah, so that was like an essential thing, and that was like a game changer because usually on a Prince Daddy tour in America, like on the Cosmic Thrill Seekers tour, I'd say I drove probably 80% of the entire tour, which was, um, it was like 6 weeks. But
Long.
okay, that's actually wrong because halfway through, Sam from Just Friends jumped in the van and ended up driving the rest of the tour. But yeah, so it just went from like we did the Cosmic Thrill Seekers US tour where I was tour managing my first venue tour. So I was like in charge of basically the entire tour, playing in Retirement Party, and then also playing in Pictures of Vernon. So 2 sets a night, and then driving everywhere for the first half.
Jeez.
To like going to Europe where I wasn't playing in either of the bands, and we had drivers for both bands, and we had merch people for both bands. So I went from like maximum possible responsibilities on the US tour and being like, I'm never touring with you guys again. This is actually my last tour. I'm done.
Yeah.
Being like, I'm on vacation. I'll be back when the show starts. I'm gonna explore the city. Like, I'm gonna enjoy myself. So there was definitely some differences in that regard for me.
And discovering the once great Weatherspoons.
Oh yes, yeah. I know that like it seems like the general consensus is that the guy that owns that's like a scumbag.
Yes.
But hell of an establishment regardless. I'm sure the guy that owns McDonald's is a scumbag too, but like I'm not going to deny it's a good establishment.
Everyone loves cheap booze here and everyone loves deals, and unfortunately the guy who runs it is a piece of shit, but most people seem to let it slide. Love the deals.
Yeah, we were eating spoons on a daily basis, that's for sure.
So I'm gonna say that the political mess here that he spent all his money on is basically down to you.
I mean, we definitely contributed to it. I'm sorry to say, we definitely contributed a fair amount to it.
Taking it back to when you met the Winter Passing for the first time, what was your? Because that was a beautiful hands exchanging to each other to shake on what later became a fantastic album that we worked on together. What was it like meeting them for the first time? I'm sure Rob was full of energy as he always is.
All of them. It was such a treat, honestly. Like I couldn't get enough. Like we probably spent a week together. I think we watched Some Kind of Monster, the Metallica documentary, at least 4 or 5 times in that period. And yeah, it was an absolute dream. They made that tour so much fun. And sadly, Marty wasn't in the band yet at that point, but just like getting to spend time and hang with all the rest of them, it was like really such a treat.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, that's how I found out about their band and saw them playing every night and was just like, yo, this band is fucking cool. And
yeah,
we got to work on the record together, and it was a huge hit in my mind. So
absolutely. And they already had like a following out in the States as well. Having worked with 6131 in the past, I just feel like it's such a shame that they haven't been able to get over there this year. But obviously, as we said before, no one is really doing anything this year. Hopefully next year. What was your opinions and thoughts? As you said before, you're not really the one to say that this song needs tweaking here, but you can identify a banger when it comes. What was your sort of opinion on New Ways of Living when it first popped into your inbox?
Oh, I thought it was awesome. I knew like maybe 2 of the songs I think they had been playing on the tour that I was on with them.
Oh,
so
cool.
I was like, yeah, I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I thought it was awesome. There's just so many different styles on there, and just like some absolute heaters. And so yeah, I was just like, I think from first listen, I don't know if we had already agreed to work together or not, but if we hadn't, then I listened probably one time. It was like, okay, yeah, I'm in.
I feel like he probably had like an informal Instagram DM conversation with Rob, basically saying you'd do the record regardless.
Yeah,
because Rob Flynn works in mysterious ways.
Yeah, I probably got like a couple 2-minute WhatsApp voice messages that were pitching the record or something.
He'd be like, look, it's going to be great. You've got to release it. We can only think of doing it with you, so you're going to have to do it.
Yeah, no, the man's got away with words, that's for sure.
He's got away with words and you can't deny it. I remember listening to it because I've known him for so long, and I remember receiving it for the first time. And I don't know if you've ever done this in the past where I think you tout that line very thinly between like working with someone because you love them, but also trying to understand that it is like a business at the end of the day. And you have like these personal relationships with people. And when they supply a record that you've basically said you're going to do, you listen to it and you're like, please don't be shit.
Oh, 100%. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I love you all so much. And I can't tell. It's like shooting a puppy. You can't tell them that it's shit. Have you? Luckily for me, that's never actually happened, and I've been amazed by everything I've ever worked with. But that anxiety must be real for you, because you are quite close to a lot of the bands that you work with.
100%. Yeah, I know exactly what you're describing. And actually, the biggest case of that I had was when Jade asked me to manage Oso, and like we talked it all over. It took a few months before we finally agreed on it, and we're like, all right, let's like, this is it. Let's make it happen. And the night we like agreed on it, he sent me the masters for Basking in the Glove. And I was just like, okay, this is my favorite artist. I've loved every single thing he's ever done, like every single song. And now I have agreed to manage his band through this next album campaign. And I'm listening to the album for the first time, and it opens slow. It opens slow with intro, and I was like, uh-oh. Like, what if I don't like it? Like, what if I don't like it? And luckily, like, by my 10th listen, I was like, oh my God, thank God he's done it again.
He's done it again. He's hit it out of the park.
Anxiety is definitely real, because it's like, what if an artist, there's been a million artists I love that just end up writing something that I think fucking sucks. And so it's scary to think that, like, it could be my friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
Luckily, it seems like so far everyone's pretty consistent.
I always struggle with the conversations where you've listened to the record and you're like, look, this is a great record. We all agree on this. We think these should be the singles for this reason, this reason, this reason. And the artists come back and go, I don't like any of those for singles. I want to go with the left field song that we all love, the slow burner that's 7 minutes, and the one that sounds nothing like us in the middle of the record. And you go,
because they want to show the diversity of the record. And you're like, fuck that. We want to show the heaters. We want to show them the heaters. We're trying to get them to buy this.
I need people on side from 5 seconds into the record, and I don't need you want to be Faith No More, okay? I need slammers.
They can find that out when they're listening to the vinyl that they pre-ordered 3 months ago.
Yes,
from hearing the banger. Yeah, I definitely feel that. But I also feel like sometimes I'll influence artists into doing songs that I want to be the singles, and then it doesn't pan out the way it did in my mind, and then I'm just like, you know what? Maybe it wasn't necessary for me to be like, oh, that one's a little too in left field to show people, to introduce them to your band.
Yeah.
So I think it goes both ways.
It definitely does. And it's crazy, like just touching back on like the anxiety and stuff like that I think everyone in like our world seems to deal with, like the constant presence of needing to be online versus being a little bit mysterious. Like burnout's a real thing. Like how have you, I mean, I've definitely burnt out in the past from just working with bands, let alone being in a band like 9-10 years ago. I feel like sometimes I'm in 10 to 15 bands just from working at BSM. How do you deal with that stuff? How do you deal with like your own mental health? You're always online throwing some hilarious tweets about, so it must be that.
Yeah, I mean, that at least is a bit cathartic for me, to be able to use like the platforms to still have fun on, instead of just keeping it strictly business, even though like it's definitely become a lot more like, okay, I have like 10 things I need to announce this month, so that's going to be at least like 20 days of like, I have something I need to post today. I don't want to post some bit just to take away from the potential reach of the stuff I need to post. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I definitely just have the luxury of making my own schedule. So if I am feeling that burnout, I can just not release albums for a couple months, and like nobody will really notice because I'll just like be like promote. I can just promote other stuff that's pre-existing without, and people won't realize that there's sort of a gap going on. And yeah, I feel like there was the big one for me was like after I did like Just Friends album Nothing But Love and Mom Jean's Puppy Love, and then reissued the early Oso discography. I was like, all right, like I just did a ton of stuff. I think I took like maybe 3 or 4 months off, and I'm not sure anybody even was like, oh, CI hasn't been doing anything. I think it was just like, oh, CI just did a bunch of stuff this summer. And so
I had no idea that you took that time off. So
yeah, originally I took it off and I was like, honestly, I just like released Oso stuff. Like I could just go out right now. These were my last releases, and I feel like the label would like live on in infamy for just having like a really epic catalog.
Yeah.
But then Walter, I randomly reached out to Walter, etc., and he had a new EP that he was interested in working with me on, and I was like, okay, well, I can't just end the label if Walter is willing to work with me. And so, yeah, I guess that's the story of how I didn't end the label in 2018.
Those new MP3s drop in front of you, and you're just like, okie dokie.
Yeah, you're just stuck back in. It's addicting, honestly.
What's you were saying that you reached out to Walter, and you had some some bands at that point, and you'd also reached out to people on Reddit. Is like your process in which that you choose to work with bands, and honestly feel free to like not disclose this if it's an awkward conversation, but how do you feel like you go ahead with your A&R? Is it a combination of people reaching out to you being told about things, or just you hearing something or knowing connections and being like, I got to get in on that?
I'd say connections are definitely a big part of it, because just from once I started touring, I was seeing different bands in different cities every night. So that was the biggest exposure to new artists. And that's how I found like Retirement Party and Nervous Dater and like all sorts of artists like that. And so that really is like a hard thing to replace. And now that I wanted to tour less, I'm relying more on just coming across stuff on Bandcamp. And if you look through like my entire discography, a lot of my releases have been reissues where even if it was a couple months after the release, like Best Buds by Mom Jeans like was already out, and I found it like a month after it was out and was like, oh, I want in on this. Like, this album's sick. And there's like countless albums like that were already put out that I was like, oh, like had I known about this, I would have wanted to do it, but I just didn't know about it. But now I do. So yeah, I feel like when I'm looking for artists, it's a lot of times I'm listening to something on Spotify thinking, do I want to offer to put this on vinyl? Or do I want to see if this came out 2 years ago, maybe they have something else they're getting ready to put out?
Yeah. It seems like that things have changed a little bit, especially with working with Origami Angel, that seemed to like go another level up, where it felt like from my point of view, especially from watching it, it felt like you could see that it was happening already. Kind of like how I think a lot of people saw over here, like when we started working with Gender Roles, or when we were working with Prince Daddy, like people sort of could see the connections and they were like, I know it's going to happen. Have you, how does that sort of correlate in your head? Do you feel like you're almost like teasing at the bit with people, or you're kind of just like, okay, let's do it because it's obvious?
I honestly, I've been following Origami since the day that Chatterbot started and put up the Quiet Hours vinyl, and I've been a fan since then, but I hadn't really considered them on my radar as somebody that I had wanted to work with for a while. And then Gen 3 had been out for a few months, and I hadn't really even heard it outside of like Ryland had played one of the songs from it for a acoustic session with the label one time. And so I was familiar with that one, but I wasn't that familiar with Gen 3 for whatever reason. And then I just started listening to it and was just like, wow, I have actually been sleeping on the massive improvement that like Gami's been going through, because doing the most from quiet hours was a huge step in the right direction, I thought. And then, and then I just kind of like fell out a little bit. And then all of a sudden, when I caught up, and it was like they'd done the split with Commander Salamander and then done the Gen 3 EP, I was just like, oh, they are taking some serious steps in the right direction. And then Summer City came out, and I was like, okay, like, like this was probably painfully obvious to everyone else, but for whatever reason, now I'm like, why have I not been like considering them one of the main bands that I should be going after? But
Yeah,
I think everything happened the way it should.
Yeah,
everything happened the way that was best for them, I think, and also best for me, because I feel like I definitely had a roster around 2018 that was like an era of bands in my mind, like Mom Jeans, Prince Daddy, Retirement Party, Nervous Dater, Just Friends, like Casual Friday. There was just countless artists that I was like, okay, this is like a squad. And then as like that started to splinter off a little bit, and some bands still were working with me, but others were going in their own directions, I was just like, well, like I've seen this with other labels. Like I've seen the RFC eras, I've seen the Top Shelf eras, I've seen the No Sleep eras. Like, am I gonna have like one epic era, or like what's gonna happen? And then working with Origami Angel really like was like, okay, this is the beginning of the next era for me.
Yeah.
And then now, like with Hospital Bracelet and Bears and Trees and Winter Passing, like I feel like this could be like the next era of the label. And yeah, I'm really bummed, honestly, now that I think about it, that the Winter Passing didn't get to do like the US tour for Fester, because like I feel like that was going to really help establish the US fan base.
And it is a real shame. It's interesting that you say that
when it happens, it's going to be epic.
Oh, absolutely, of course it's going to be epic. I agree with you on the like on the sort of life cycles of the labels, where like it seems like labels are in, and everything's going from like the RSC stuff and the Top Shelf stuff and the No Sleep stuff that you were saying. It almost feels like when one of those bands moves on, you're yearning for like someone to come and fill that space, but they're never going to do it. And it almost seems like it's important to keep that like catalog within your home, so you can continuously pumping out reissues and stuff like that. But that's an interesting segue to sort of wonder, have you thought like where you want the label to be in like 5 years, or have you got any grand plans that are sort of not too exciting to tell us all?
Honestly, I'm definitely at a weird spot where there's probably like a year or two ago where I sat down and was just like, everything I ever dreamed that the label could do or could be has like already happened. So one, that's amazing, and I'm like eternally grateful that that's even happened. But two, I need to move the goalposts and figure out what like it is that I want to grow and achieve. Like how big would I want the label to try to be? And for a while I was like, I have a good thing going right now. Like I have a handful of people that like freelance for me that are good friends who I get to like give some opportunities to work to, and I keep low overhead, and I can work with artists and help them like create careers. Like, do I really want to try to expand and potentially throw wrenches in this system? And yeah, I honestly don't really have an answer for it. I do want to keep like seeing what opportunities I can get for the label and for the artists on the label, but I also want to keep the aspects of it that I feel like are the most beneficial and not succumb to any of the temptations of multi-album deals and worse profit splits and stuff like that like labels easily could. I mean, a lot of labels do this, and I think that they suck because of it, but like it's stuff that easily could make my life easier, make the label grow more, make my wallet grow more, but it's like just not what I want to do long term. And yeah, so I'd say I'm in between at an in-between stage of deciding what to do next,
Mm.
in terms of growth. So I'm kind of just keeping it going, and
Yeah.
I think I've got a good thing going with like the way the label's at right now. And so
Those posts will be moved, but TBC and when they will be moved.
yeah, exactly. Once I figure out what would be worth moving them towards,
Yeah.
then that'll be the goal.
Because you've dabbled in signing European bands before, and have worked and had bands come in and do the acoustic sessions for the label Fresh, for instance, and working with the Winter Passing and Fairs and Bear in the Tree are from here.
I Love Your Lifestyle from
I Love Your
Sweden.
Lifestyle from Sweden. Yeah, absolutely. I was, for some reason, there was names in my head there, and I just couldn't pick out which ones were from my part of the world.
For sure.
How do you feel when you're working with bands that are so far away from you? Like when we worked with Proper, it was very much like, we want to give you the best opportunities that we can with our knowledge of how we do this operation, but we're not where you are, and there's going to be like a learning curve. How do you feel about that when you're working with bands over here specifically?
I definitely feel like that's an area that I still need to improve on, because it's just, at least I've found it's harder to get people over here who are like, most of my fans are probably 90% of the people that listen to Counterintuitive bands are from the States.
Mm.
It's harder to expose them to foreign bands than it is to show them Origami Angel. I don't know why that is, but I've found that I've struggled more um, to get the reach for the bands that are from out of the country, and so that's something I want to figure out, and that's why I wanted to like just get these bands over here for tours and just like be able to do more stuff with them, so that there's more opportunities for people to get to know them. And it was awesome when Catherine was on like a family vacation in Boston, and I was just like, I was already a fan of Fresh, and so I was just like, hey, I know that we don't really know each other, but I live in Boston, and I saw you were tweeting about being here. Like, it would be really cool if we could hang out, and also if we could, record these sessions. And
Yeah,
it ended up starting a wonderful friendship, and
they're a wonderful band.
Yeah,
They rock.
Um, so yeah, just getting to do those videos, like I would love to do those with the Winter Passing and I Love Your Lifestyle and Bears and Trees, and I just feel like getting people to tour over here is the disconnect right now of fully getting the Counterintuitive fan base aware of the bands from out of the country, and hoping that we'll be able to rectify that.
It's crazy how much harder it is for European, like UK bands specifically, to tour the US compared to how relatively easy it is for US bands to come over to Europe. There's definitely, I think if there is something that's going to be fixed at some point, that needs to be addressed, because it definitely takes the weight off for a label like BSM working with the US bands, because we know they're going to come and tour Europe. Whereas the anxiety and heavy elephant in the room is for you that it's cost a hell of a lot of money for these bands in Europe to come. Obviously it costs a lot of money for States bands to come over here as well, but they can see the return. They can see like, oh, well, we're going to get 300-400 euros a night because we're from so far away. Where I think there's a lot of anxiety with UK bands. They know they want to do it, but it's unattainable almost,
Yeah.
It's
crazy. Definitely. I feel like a lot of it's the logistics of the US also, is like we have tons of major music markets, but they're so spread out that it's like, okay, like is a band from England going to come over and just play in the Northeast and do like Boston and New York City and Philly and New Jersey, and like you can do a solid week tour and definitely make money, but it's like, but they've never been to America before. Is that all that they want to do when they're here? Like, they're probably going to want to do as much as they can. And so it's just like tough deciding, like, okay, are you just going to do a week, or are you going to do two? And then your costs will be potentially doubled, but music market, so you won't be making as much money. And so, yeah, it's definitely a lot more challenging. I found.
Yeah.
I mean, it was obviously challenging to book a European tour, but
You did
I
it.
think that, yeah, I think that from doing it, I could replicate the process for most artists from my label and be able to say to them, like, you're going to break even from, like, I'm very confident you'll break even. And so that alone is a huge reassurance going into something massive like that, where there was, you know, people telling Oso, you're going to go broke on this tour, you're going to go broke. And it's just like, that's not the kind of energy we need.
Nah, positivity all the way. We're going to wrap this up soon because I think the Zoom will run out of time. But 2 questions that I thought would be cool to end it on. First of all, what's your proudest moment as CI head honcho, big boss, big cheese? What are you most proud of?
That's pretty hard. Like,
Pull
there's definitely
it out of a bag. Just
yeah. Proudest moment, probably. Oh my God, that's actually I can think of 50 like right off the bat. Okay, probably.
I could do top 5.
Okay, seeing Mom Jeans play to 5,000 people in Worcester, Massachusetts at that summer festival. Seeing Prince Daddy sell out the first night of the Cosmic Thrill Seekers tour at a 500 cap venue in Boston, in my hometown. And yeah, that was pretty crazy. That was like, that was definitely epic. Getting to play with, I mean, I can't pick one single band since I've gotten to play with like 5 or 6 artists on the label and do tours with them, but like getting to play in Retirement Party and play shows where people are stage diving and going nuts, and like I can't remember a single second of the set from when it started to when it ended because it was just a blur of like, holy shit, this is the stuff I dreamed of when I was 16 years old.
Yeah, you've completed
it. Yeah, getting to work with Oso and not only like be on the team putting out Basking in the Glow, but also getting to release Jade's music through the label and doing the Oso and State Line stuff. Like that was like the same type of thing where when I was 18, I was like, wow, if I could even be a peer to artists like this, that would be great, let alone like getting to work with them.
I love that. That is the energy. All those are highlights. I love that energy.
Yeah.
Finally, for the people who will be hearing this for the first time, for the people who are sort of just discovering the BSM CIR connection, what do you want people to know about you and the label and what it stands for?
We just try to be as artist friendly as possible. Our goal is to help as many artists make music their careers as possible, and we also just happen to put out the best music in the game. So there's nobody better to team up with than BSM because you're doing the exact same thing on the other side of the pond. So if anybody's a fan of BSM, you're going to be a fan of CI and vice versa. So
it's the energy. It's the 3-point heat energy that we need in the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that, man. Thanks so much for having a chat with me.
Yeah, no, thanks for thinking to do this. It was really dope getting to. I'm glad we got to sit down and hang out.